Wonderful. Thank you all so much for those who are tuned in online and my beautiful studio audience behind me. Go ahead and wave, studio audience, for a quick second. We are so excited to have you all here at our April program. It is spring. Congratulations on making it this far. And we are really excited about the evolution of our lunch programming thus far. We have an incredible panel to take on the topic of finance. So this is pretty consistent with what Professional Dimensions likes to talk about. We had a really good prep call talking about just the cross-generational, racial preferences around how that informs the finance conversation. And we have a panel of experts that are going to help us talk more about that and unpack that. And I just want to remind everyone that we like to kind of end with a question about what better looks like. And that's kind of the uniting force of all of the programming that we have. And so we want you all to be thinking about that as you're tuning in and as you are listening in. What does better look like for you personally as a woman? And what does better look like when we as women are able to lead in that capacity? So thank you all so much for coming. I don't think I introduced myself, but I'm Lauren Feaster, proud CEO of Professional Dimensions. And I'm now going to kick it over for introductions to our incredible moderator. We have Emily Phillips joining us. She is from Baird, but more importantly, she is serving on the Professional Dimensions Board of Directors and has an extensive experience in this field as well as in community. And so we thought that having those things paired and just the way that she's led and always keeps women at the forefront of the decisions that she makes, couldn't think of a better person to help us guide us through this conversation. So I'm going to kick it over to Emily and direct your attention to the group on stage. Round of applause for our panelists and our host.
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you for being here. We're very excited. I know money and women are two of our very favorite topics. So we'll hope to limit this to the regularly scheduled programming time allotment. As Lauren referenced, my name is Emily Phillips. I work at Baird in private wealth management, leading a team on the retail side. So moving down the line to the additional panelists, Lauren made sure that I was the moderator so I wouldn't wax poetic. These individuals are going to be the brains of this operation. So we'll start here first with Mindy, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then Erin, and then Lupita, please.
Sure. So I'm Mindy Wilke. I'm the founder of Wilke Wealth and Investment Planning, and I've been a wealth manager for 23 years. So I have my own firm. We are a all-women's financial planning firm. We're located in Franklin, Wisconsin. And we didn't start that way. So that's how we are today, and we're loving it. Our focus is fee-based planning, and then we get involved in investment management and insurance needs. I started this world pretty young. So my dad was a business owner, and luckily he let his children be aware of the business and how the ins and outs work. So by the time I was 12, I was actually doing my dad's business tax returns, and I could do it with a pen and not make a mistake. But I just realized it was something I was really into. I was really into numbers, the analytical part of it. And so that was sort of my upbringing into this. And then I went to Marquette. I was planning on being a CPA. About halfway through, realized that's not my world either. So I switched out to finance, worked at Strong Funds in Menominee Falls for a few years while I was still going to school. And I was a mutual fund accountant, which was all analytical work. I was really, really good at it, but it was so boring for me. So I found my way here. And this is where I got to bring both those worlds together, which is really understanding the people side and the money side and putting that together. So that's my world and how I got here.
I'm Erin Ulicki. I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones. My office is based in Heartland, Wisconsin, but like many of us here, we work with clients all over the country. I'm actually what we call a career changer, and I believe Lupita is as well, where I had friends for 10 years telling me to do this, that I'd be really great at it, and I kept pushing against them because I actually I don't have a finance background originally. And I became self-taught because I had a terrible financial advisor. Just terrible. You didn't hear.
It wasn't Mindy, though. Just full disclosure. I just want to make sure
this advisor was not with any of the firms represented today. But the lack of advice that we received for that human taught me that I had to go out and learn it on my own. And so that's when it came time for me to leave my career in advertising. and finally joined Edward Jones 8 years ago. As Lupita and I said, you didn't know that that was your calling until it became your calling. And so our branch focuses, we work with a lot of women investors because we find that like attracts like, and our ladies are super busy and have been caring and taking care of everyone else in life. And they hit this transition point in their life and realize, oh my word, I need to figure this out. So that's how I came into my career. I'm happy to expand on that later, but I'll switch it over to Lupita to do her introduction.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lupita. Born and raised in Milwaukee, financial advisor, dog mom, CrossFitter, all kinds of things. But also something I'm very proud of is I'm a first-gen college graduate. My parents are from Mexico. My mom was the first out of her siblings to come to this country for work and start a life for us that gave me opportunities. I also actually went to Marquette. Studied international affairs, minored in HR and public health, ended up in HR for about 6 years, and then did a completely career change shift in my life where I do believe I'm in my calling now as a financial advisor. I also have my RICP designation, which stands for Retirement Income Certified Professional, and working on my Certified Financial Planner designation currently. As well. And I am the only Spanish speaking advisor in my office. So no one's messing with my market. I really I feel like that's what has supported me being in my calling is there is such a need, especially in my community, also with women. So happy to be here.
So, Erin, you bring up a great point. Not that you had a terrible financial advisor. It's not a great point. But like any industry, the law of mediocrity applies. So oftentimes what I've noticed is people have different definitions for what a financial advisor is and what they do. And all three of you did an excellent job of sort of touching on that high level. Good job, elevator pitches. But would you mind sharing, Erin, what is, if start with you, what is your definition of a financial advisor? Like, what does the role encompass, right? Maybe what didn't you receive and what do you believe people should receive? And then we can pass
It's a good way to phrase it. I think I'll touch back on what we didn't receive and what we try to provide for our clients now. So an example that these ladies had heard was this person, we had been referred to them. And what I mean by terrible is they were fine from the investment side. We were presented with, what we did, it was a more traditional way of you sat down. It was a male, not surprising, it's 80% of the industry. They were an older person who'd been doing this for a long time, and they just went through this chart, this Morningstar fact sheet, and I was overwhelmed. I just nodded because I didn't know that language, and that is something that I feel is also why we focus on working with female investors, is because growing up Gen X, I thought investing was something I didn't understand. It was a different language. It was very male-based. It was very Sharpe ratio, beta, like the things that aren't my area of brilliance. So I would just nod along. And in our household, my husband is an amazing human, but this is not what he's interested in. So I always take the lead on it. And I found out, I told Mindy later, I found out that our person never changed our investments. We were probably being double charged because we were buying something that you pay in advance for it, and then they were charging us a fee on top of that. It was just lack of knowledge. And it was two important questions I asked. I thought they were important. I remember asking him, we had young kids at the time, we were working really hard in our jobs, and I said, how much do we need to save to retire?
Seems like a relatively important question. Would you agree?
Seems like these were retirement accounts that we had opened with him. That's all we had. We had, things from previous jobs that we had moved to him. And he said, well, that's for you to figure out. Why are we sitting here? So that was my first thing where I started educating myself. And the second was he gave us just bad advice before the housing crisis. He wanted us to take out a home equity loan and invest that money because we could. It was terrible advice.
Well, my guess is she probably didn't listen to it.
No, we did not. We would have probably been in a world of hurt had we taken bad advice. So how that informs how I work with clients is where I feel, and what defines my role is I am there to be your coach and your guide. I am there to help you collect all your puzzle pieces in your life. And I'm there to help give you the picture of where you are and give you options of where you want to be. And those goals may relate to retirement, but they may be other things. And if you need help learning how to plan money, like from a budgeting standpoint, we will find you the resources for that, because that's not exactly where I'm going to spend all the time, but we will make sure that you get support with that. And then on top of setting those goals and we do so much listening. Then we develop the right plan for that client, those clients, if they're a team, based on their goals.
Lupita, would you say that listening is a big part of what clients need from you as well? You think about the way you described, Erin, your financial advisor is very traditional, old-fashioned way, right? But our people in the audience virtually and here in person, they want to walk out knowing what they should be informed about, what questions they should be asking, and if they're working with the right person or if they need to work with a person, right? So in your words, Lupita, do you mind sharing a little bit about how you define that role and what clients should be expecting from you and others?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very education first is my approach, especially in the market that I serve. Many times I'm the first financial advisor that's ever reached out to this person with this person. And I really encourage them to ask as many questions as possible, making them feel that no question is a dumb question. And also sharing a little bit about myself, how I was also self-taught, how I got into the career, so that they know that they're empowered to also do the same and learn from scratch. I do believe that listening is huge, especially if you ask the right questions. You can get people going on and on and on. They don't even realize that they needed to vent to someone about, the liabilities that they're sitting on and just, not having the time to budget properly or, manage their debt. And so I feel like listening is step number one to create that trust and to give them that safe space to, just kind of put it all out, and then letting them know after that, hey, I can help organize your burdens. I can help, give you clarity. And guess what? We can automate everything later so that you don't even have to think about it. We sit together maybe once or twice a year, and you can have that peace of mind, because ultimately that is the end goal. But as a financial advisor, many times we're not just talking, finances. Sometimes and I'm sure all of you can relate, therapists. So I feel like an attorney, like you're just your sister, you do wear a lot of hats. And oftentimes I'll sit with someone who is a friend and a client and say, okay, I'm putting my financial planner hat on right now. I'm your friend, I'm your confidant. And so I think a financial advisor is more than, all right, let's take inventory, let's take a budget. It's not cookie cutter at all. And I can't preach that enough. I really want people to know that it's tailored to you, and that also plays a role into who you select as your financial advisor. I think that's huge, because our goal, and again, I'm sure you all can agree, is to grow old with our clients.
Anything to add?
So my world's slightly different, yet the same. So I work a lot in the retirement market space. So my clients tend to be about 5 to 10 years before retirement, or they're already in retirement. And they are really looking to see, have they done it right? Do they have enough money? Is it in the right buckets? And then how do they actually take it out? So I meet a lot of clients who have saved really well, but they have no idea how they actually take the money out for retirement, and which bucket do they take the money from, and how is it really going to affect them tax-wise. They definitely do not know their Social Security strategy yet, but yet it's coming down the pipeline. So in my world, that's pretty typical where our clients are. But they just don't know. They don't know if they're actually okay. They don't know how to do it. And they need somebody who understands them and what's important in their life and what their goals are. Because what's important in my life is not the same as my client. And I can't have an agenda to push. So as a fee-based planner, we will get hired to do the whole lay of the land, find all the puzzle pieces, put a whole plan together. And we always lay out first their plan if they just do exactly what they're going to do. So we teach them what their life will look like if they just follow through on what they've already been doing.
What happens when the plan gets disrupted by the punch in the face, the Mike Tyson line, right? Back to Erin's point earlier about putting the puzzle pieces together. You don't always have all the puzzle pieces, right? And so, and the reason I'm asking this question is because I often hear from people who have a different advisor who are thinking about making a change. You know, we don't talk about how I view risk. Risk to me is not necessarily my accounts going down. Risk is my child loses a job and now their family and their kids have nowhere to go because they're in between places. Can I take care of my family? Especially if you're speaking to female investors who, I mean, genetically superior. I hope to all the men in the audience, I'm sure you agree. But we're thinking about 18,000 things ahead of the thing that we're probably focused on at the moment, right?
And it is very interesting if there's a married couple that's a man and a woman, and the men absolutely want to know the number side of it, right? Do we have enough? And here's how much we spend. But the women will talk about, and usually I'm bringing up, you guys have children. You have adult children. Tell me how much they have knowledge about their finances. Tell me if they have proper disability insurance or life insurance, because who is their safety net? I bet you if I call them and I ask them, they will immediately say, well, it's mom and dad. Mom and dad have always had my back, right? They're my safety net. But realizing they believe you're still their safety net when you're walking into retirement. That's different. And a lot of parents are not realizing that, but yet the kids fully believe mom and dad are on board with them being the safety net. So there's also generational type planning that we provide, but it also goes the opposite way. We will have 80 and 90-year-old parents to our clients, and then our client is the executor for their parents. And I always find that interesting when I go, so you brought me your puzzle pieces that, no offense, was a hot mess. And you're the one responsible for your parents too? So are they just as much as a hot mess? Maybe more? Because you don't understand your own. Do you realize how much harder it is to realize somebody else's? And so we will get involved in that because, as you can imagine, that's how money passes, right? That's the next generation of money passing. But you also want to make sure that those parents have enough money to take care of themselves. Or is there a burden sitting there that these retirees are actually going to be picking up, and they didn't realize that? I mean, that's the whole, essence of a sandwich generation. You got your own, but then you got your kids who are trying to be adults, but yet they don't have a backup plan. And then you have your own parents who haven't been able to realize the amount of, expenses and their health and what is coming up for them. And they are usually not prepared, unfortunately. The generation in the sandwich wants to take care of it all, but they don't realize how big all of it really is. So that's sort of our world.
Yeah. So let's go back to the industry term hot mess. So in order to prevent being a hot mess, there's so many ways we can take that, right? Because how everyone defines money is very personal. A lot of my guy friends that I play golf with who apparently can't count, it's the number, right? It's always the number. I want to hit this, right? It's, it's a broad brushstroke. But women, it often is different, right? And money for me personally is independence. Money for me personally is freedom. It's the ability to make decisions about my life, incorporating the people I care about, the organizations I support, and how I can support them and enjoy life, experiences, going out to dinner, spending time with friends, things of that nature, right? It's not a personal balance sheet of I've achieved success with this number. But everyone's different, right? And everyone has grown up with a different relationship with money. Not every family talks about it. A lot of families don't have any. So when we say things like money's transferring from generation to generation, well, there's a large majority of this country that doesn't have access to that, right? So when we think about life phases, accumulation, right? And then you think about that distribution phase, right? Or then potentially transfer. What are some of the things you're talking to your clients that, let's say, knowing our audience, let's go 30s, 40s, 50s, right? What are some of the things that people, consumers, clients should really be thinking about? Lupita, why don't you go first, right? And try to tell your answer to incorporate people that may have some level of knowledge, but also some people that might really be wondering, am I doing what I'm doing? Quick example, then I'll stop talking, I promise. How many times do you meet with a client when they say, I'm saving the maximum in my 401k? And then you look at it and you say, oh, you're saving up to what your company matches. Right? So why don't you just take it from the top? Just hit a couple of high level things like what should people really be thinking about and looking to do in this sort of accumulation phase?
So there are a lot of points there, and I'll try to organize my thoughts to check them all off. But one thing back to the hot mess topic, I get so many people that sit in front of me who think they're a hot mess, and they're really not. They're actually doing an okay job. So when people are hesitant to meet with me because they're a hot mess, I tell them like you're probably doing better than the majority of people. And that tends to be the case. I think people just want that certainty of they're doing the most they can, what they should be doing, versus scrambling later. And so one thing that I touch on, especially for people in their 30s, is we don't know what life is going to look like 30 years from now. And there are a lot of changes in the economy and society, politically, where nothing is guaranteed. And if we don't cover our own butts, like there might not be a things such as retirement. A big majority of business owners are now women. Women are living longer. They are part of that sandwich situation in their family where they're taking care of kids and parents. And so having that conversation around like, hey, we need to like take care of us. We're primary breadwinners now. Women barely been able to manage their own finances like 50 years ago, barely. Like it hasn't even been 100 years since that's been a thing. And so we can't repeat what our parents did. If you're second gen, if you're first gen, like in my situation, my mom came from another country where financial institutions are corrupt. So there's fears now that I'm trying to dismantle. And now we're really like getting to nitty gritty of like, hey, it's different here in this country. This is how you build wealth. This is why you have to build wealth. And we have to start now because now we can start with smaller quantities versus being 5 years out of retirement and scrambling at that point, or being in a situation where we have to retire because of medical purposes and we don't have a plan for that. So really just telling clients we need to have these conversations. We need to have our butts covered because we really don't know what the future holds, and there will not be tools outside of our control that we can depend on to be in a position to not work if we can afford to, or to take care of our kids if they come back home one day, or our parents if they have nowhere to go one day or need caretaking at home, so on and so forth. So I think that the conversation now in people in their 30s is very different than my mom and what conversation I would have to her 30-year-old self. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Erin, you look like you were going to jump in.
To build on what Lupita said, one of my things that I ask each client that really helps me understand them more quickly is, how is money managed? Tell me about money growing up. And you will hear so much. You will hear, my dad died when I was 12 and my mom had a plan and there was life insurance. Like you'll hear a story like that. Or you will hear, my parents have declared bankruptcy multiple times and I don't want to be them. And then from there, depending, like you said, women in their 30s, 40s, kind of in that accumulation stage, often I will find that first uncovering how their emotional relationship to money was based in those years, reflect how they're facing it now. And I work with a lot of high income earning women, but also they will, some of them at the same time don't want to look at the credit card bill. You know, they're doing great in their profession, but they also don't want to address how they're planning out that side of the money. So what I feel is important is don't hide from your money. And you always will know more about it, like Lupita said, than you realize. That's what led me to this role, sitting in this chair right now. I knew a lot more than I realized. I wasn't giving myself credit for it. And just doing small things like look at your credit card bill. Do you really need to be buying our kids Starbucks? Because I got to tell you, I have a 12-year-old and she's starting to get on the Starbucks kick. And I'm like, girl, I remember when this stuff cost $2.50 for a latte. That was like $10 yesterday. So not hiding from it, knowing that you have more confidence in your money than you realize and stepping into that role. And as Lupita said, in my office, it's a judgment-free zone. It is your money. You will use it the way you want. I'm here to give you options to make those choices. And then we will answer the detailed questions. Like if they say I'm putting my maximum in this work account, I'll say, well, you know, it's not a % maximum. It's $1 maximum. And I need you to know that because you could put up to X amount in there. So just those small education pieces and bites. That's my one thing. Let's not hide from it. Let's look at it and let's create a plan around it so you feel confident moving forward. Fair?
Yes, very fair. I'll open up an account later with you. I'll have to go through disclosures, but, you know, yeah, exactly. How often do you meet with women investors who are just, they're really comfortable talking about wanting a lot of money, making it, growing it, having it? How often do you talk to a female investor or a woman identified investor who is just really gung ho and really wants more of it?
I'll take this one. I would say not that often. So I thought how I grew up that my parents always talked about money, and not that they had the money, but that's why they talked about it, because they didn't want us to grow up like them. They were paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes they didn't even have enough of a paycheck. But they didn't want that to happen to us. And so they made sure they taught us about it, which I am very thankful they did. I thought that was normal. I thought it's normal that you talk about to your friends, like, well, how much money do you make and what do you do with it? And what kind of investments are you doing? That is not normal is what I've learned. Like people didn't grow up doing parents' tax returns, playing calculator games with their dad. I thought that was normal. It's not.
I feel like I finally found my first kindred spirit.
I would agree. I think, unfortunately, that's why there's not as many women in the financial industry, because they think you almost always have to have that to be an advisor. And that's not true, right? It's all different types of people that are good advisors. So unfortunately, there isn't. Most women will. So, for example, I work with majority of married couples. It's usually the man who's calling me. And it's the husband who's calling me, even though the wife could have gotten the referral to me. The husband will call me and make sure that I'm right for their family. He usually loves that I'm actually a female and that we have an all-female team. And he'll say to me, you know what? I gotta be honest. Anytime I've needed truth given to me, I've gone to a woman and not a golf buddy. And my wife, she always wants a woman. If she's going to talk to something that is maybe not something she gets to talk to all her friends about, it feels private. She tends to want a female for that. So you sort of are checking all our boxes and you have a whole team of women. So it must be good. Like that's legit what they tell me. And I'm like, I'm glad that's true. Hopefully, right, we're the right people. But most women are worried about today. What's going on in the checkbook? Do we have enough money to pay all our bills? It's about today. Men are thinking about investing and what their retirement accounts look like. It is very rare that a woman can say to me, let me tell you what is in the balance of all of our accounts. And I can get within $1,000 of it. The man goes, oh, I can tell you exactly what we have. A lot of times, and they're the same household. And the woman can even be the one who makes more money. But usually the woman is the one who pays the bills. She is the one who's aware of how much the credit card is and how much money is going away for their future. She leaves that to the husband, which is also really wild to me. There's just probably, I mean, it's a scary statistic that at one point, it's 90% of all women are going to be by themselves making solo financial decisions. 90%. But yet they're leaving a lot of that knowledge and coming to the table, talking about the money to their husband.
So yeah.
How often do you see reverse where the woman is more aware of financial status?
So that's 80% in my office. And that's what we talked about. Sure. So the question was, how often do we see the reverse where it's actually in a male-female relationship, it's the female who knows all the numbers and is driving it. And we talked about how our audiences are a little bit different. Mine's more the mid 40s to mid 50s group, and yours is a bit older. And I see in my office, it's probably 80% of the women who are the ones sitting down, and the men are super rad in these relationships, but they're a bit more, they're just a bit more relaxed, or it is a more equal relationship when it comes to the money. So I think we see that changing in our office. Now, I do have male clients who came to us because they want to make sure when their wife outlives them that she's with someone she wants to be comfortable with. And in those relationships, it's more what you just described.
How often in the planning process, the time value of money, compounding interest, the arithmetic of the job is pretty simple, right? Math doesn't lie unless you can edit it. But what about, how often do you give people advice on their potential to make more, to save more?
I would say in my world, not that often. But my clients are near the end of their career for the most part. Now, when their children come in to talk about planning, so we do generational planning and we make sure their kids do get planning and we have other advisors for them. That is a ton of the conversation. But that's just not my world. My clients are ready to slow down and maybe work part-time if they can.
Lupita, in your total addressable market that has no competition, how much part of that conversation are you having with these business owners and things of that nature?
So I want to do a quick plug in on the women running finances. With a lot of the male run small businesses clients that I have, their wives are usually doing the behind the scenes like money part of it. I am seeing that a lot. And there, I'll do a quick plug in. I'm a big reader, and there's a book called What Matters Most by Chanel Reynolds, where she experienced losing her husband, primary breadwinner, and her not even knowing passwords to their accounts. So that I understand Mindy, but I am experiencing more of Erin's part of that world. In terms of encouraging or finding opportunities of earning more income within my clients, I think it depends on who I'm sitting down with. So in most instances, if there's a situation where, hey, we should be saving more, the first thing I address is where can we chip away with expenses, right? Because that's easier to address than generating more income for someone. If someone is maybe just not growing in their business, where there's opportunity to generate more revenue, then that conversation is definitely had, and that's with my small business owners. And if someone is in the peak of their career where, they're earning bonuses, they're going to make more, but maybe there's opportunity to, make even more after that. I mean, that conversation is had, but that's what I'll say with my experience.
Anything to add?
I think anecdotally with clients, they will use me as a sounding board for those opportunities. So we'll say, sometimes it's just frustration with career. And also remember, there tend to be juggling several things, as Mindy outlined, is that family and on both sides. So is this an opportunity they want to take on to stretch themselves again? Or are they just trying to tread water for the next few years because they can't take on more on their plate. So we'll just have a casual conversation, and I will always encourage them to stretch themselves if they can.
But to tie out this in some of all of that, it is perfectly normal and encouraged to discuss these conversations about money, whether it's the actual mechanics of growing it, but also the making it, the risks associated with that. That is a very normal relationship to have with a financial advisor. And if you're not getting that, pursue that.
We talk more about, I'm thinking about working somewhere else. I have somebody, a different company pursuing me. I'm wondering if I should go there, but it's different. And they need to compare their income, their bonuses, their benefits, and how does that really work? If they take a different career path with a different employer, what will that do for their future? I never know if they're going to love it more, right? That's up to them to make that decision. And I always challenge them to, it's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about being where you're at because you love it. And maybe financially, you don't actually need to earn more money. And I think that's just as important to know. And too many people sort of think, I just got to earn more, 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 and more. But that's not always the
Those
case.
would be the golfers.
Yes. So there is a lot of those kind of conversations, or, they want to sell their house or buy another house and turn it into a rental. Should they do that? And what does it look like? We talk about, do you need to set up an LLC? And they'll go, oh, what? Let's talk about that, right? What's the title of your house? Let's talk about that. So it is so much more than just how much money is in your retirement account.
We have a question in the audience.
Tips or differences from a single female household. There's another that kind of talks about a married couple that keeps separate finances and has two different advisors. Like, is that thing? How does that work? We're taking this out to another direction here.
Themes of competition. I love it. Okay, so step one, bullet points on a single female household. The dynamics of talking to your partner, managing household finances when you have respective advisors. Yep, keep finances separate. And then the next one was the financial planning steps. All right, who wants to take what before I take all three?
I can talk about the single mom, the household. So my mind goes to several places. Number one being the emergency fund / peace of mind fund. Usually when there are more, dependents, you are the sole provider. I really make that the focus, where maybe we don't just have a 3-month emergency fund, but maybe 6 months worth of expenses, or even a year, depending on their job stability. I also think of risk management, right? Life insurance, making sure the kids are okay if something happens to mom, and then protecting her income. And then lastly, I think about estate planning, just having that plan B in place, in case, God forbid, something happens to mom, kids are taken care of, and mom is leaving the legacy she wants to leave behind. And that's that.
Who wants to take the separate household
Sure, I'll take that.
financial? That's the fun one.
Doing this for 23 years, I've kind of seen it all. So if you have a married couple that has 2 separate financial advisors, and I do understand why that can happen, especially if it's a later marriage, right? Or a second marriage, and maybe you don't even have kids together. That's a real
blended
thing.
family.
A blended family, you bet. So my advice would be to take the finances of both of you and make sure both advisors are aware of what's happening with your spouse. So there is a big difference when you manage money from a married family jointly standpoint versus single standpoint. And it is very different. And you certainly don't want an advisor to only look at one party and think of it as like single taxes are happening there, because that's not true. It's married taxes. So taxes are a little bit cheaper. And what one spouse is doing, you've got to be aware of that. And honestly, this happens even when people don't even have financial advisors. So many people do their thing and their spouse does their thing, and nobody ever looks at each other's retirement accounts of how much money you have there, who's saving in a tax-free account versus a taxable account. So I would just share it with both advisors, and it's a little odd, but I don't think it's impossible to have two different financial advisors.
I think in my experience, I see it in the upper wealth bands
Yes.
more frequently. Upper wealth bands and also blended families
Yes.
and later marriages.
Right.
And to your point, the transparency is everything, especially around the tax side, because you can have duplication in the portfolio, and you can also put yourself in a higher tax bracket, unless you're in the highest tax bracket, with some of the moves that you're making. So it's not abnormal. It's just less frequent, I would say.
And to speak to our wider audience, is what like Mindy said, sitting in the chair that I sit in every day, I have learned money shows up in different ways. Trust shows up in different ways. How you handle it in your relationship is okay for you. You know, like I will tell people, especially when I get those younger clients who are getting married, like children of clients, and I say, however you guys feel is the way for you to manage money is the right way, because money and trust, you don't have to put everything in a joint, right? Like if that's not how you're going to roll, don't roll that way. But if you can be in a situation where there is trust in the relationship and they will share and be transparent, that helps each advisor, because otherwise we're only looking at half the picture, and then that can create issues and also some distrust down the end. Like you said, if one partner is doing something untoward with their path and not covering the expenses, that will create issues for your client.
And in that case as well, just from an operational standpoint, because we love details at PD, right? Is making sure to double check any kind of beneficiary status or anything of that nature, because it is so common where you will look over documents for an individual who's even been divorced for 10, 15 years, and they haven't updated their beneficiaries. And their eyes get quite saucer-like when they realize that it might not be directed the way they would prefer it to go moving forward. So that's another piece too, just on the transparency piece.
There's something that Lupita said. I'm sorry to interrupt. Having everyone already has an estate plan. It's with the court down the road. If you don't have one, someone there is going to figure it out for you in Milwaukee County. And so that's where I will always, we have partners that we'll refer to. I say, you need an estate plan. And especially people when they have younger kids. I will admit myself, my husband and I got our estate plan updated, and there were some things that we should have had in place when our kids were younger. Now that they're 16 and 12, I'm like, well, it's not as difficult. But having a good estate lawyer look over everything, and especially in Wisconsin, making sure that money flows the way you intend it and that things are titled the way, that's a really important plan of everything that you do.
I bet there's just a caveat in there regarding no Starbucks if anything were to happen to you and your
100%.
husband. So
Say Ulicki, no Starbucks. Also, you need to keep her art addiction down.
that's right. The last question around financial planning, and that's a big question. There's a lot of different directions you can take that. So some financial planning steps or basics. Who wants to kind of start there, right?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think the first place to start is if you're with an advisor, they really should be starting where they want to know you. They want to know, again, what your money relationship has been, what goals are for yourself, what your life has been like, right? Because it also helps them understand where is your money today and how did it get there? You also want to just understand, well, where do you really want to go for your future? And it's not about how much money do you need. It's just be able to explain, what do you want? Do you have a point that you want to actually retire from a formal, never have a job again type place? Do you think you're one of those people that you're always going to make money doing side gigs kind of thing, right? Like that's your thing because you like being busy and you also want to make money at the same time. You have to understand what's important to you. And there is no right and wrong answer. Do not try to satisfy the advisor or impress them. It won't work. Just be you. That's what they want to know. And then you want to start pulling together your different financial information that you have. It's everything from the tax return you just filed or you're going to file because that deadline's coming up, to
Thank
your
goodness.
to like a pay stub, to employee benefits, account balances, what kind of money in checking and savings, but also the titles of all of those accounts and the beneficiaries of those accounts and what you have for insurances. I know that just probably felt super overwhelming. Oh, sure.
That's a great question.
Gosh, how do you find the right advisor? I think first of all, you should probably ask certain people in your life that you trust and that you like their personality. Maybe you're similar to them. Ask them if they have a financial advisor and do they love them? Not do you have a financial advisor? Please don't leave it at that because you might get the one Erin had a long time ago. So
Referred to us.
My guess is he might be retired.
I hope
Thankfully
so. So make sure they love them. When you get in front of that financial advisor, ask them questions of how do you work with a client? What type of clients do you work with? Ask them how often do you meet with a client? Because these are all things that are going to be unique of how what you want. There isn't a right and wrong answer, but you do want to find that advisor that's going to work well with you. Maybe you need to be able to email them questions when you're going to change jobs or change a house and it's not time for your normal annual meeting. You have to know that they're going to be open to that if that's who you are. If you're going to turn to this advisor for a lot of those things, make sure they are willing to receive that type of communication. And then, of course, ask them what their fees are. Advisors, of course, need to get paid. Advisors don't work for free, but they should very transparently tell you where they get fees from and how they happen. And it's not a bad thing to ask. They should actually tell you even if you don't ask.
I mean, I think Mindy did a great job. And that would be what I would say too, is here's good questions. What you're looking for, you have 3 different flavors up here of human, right? Who are qualified advisors. You're looking for that person that you connect with and you trust and you feel you can have those conversations. I tell my clients, I said, here's how often we're going to be checking in with you, but I need you to call us if something happens that we're unaware of. If you get a cancer diagnosis, if you change jobs, if something has happened with your kid, I want to know about those things because clients don't always know from a money perspective how that impacts them. But I just want to know you're my client. You're important to us. We care about you. And those are things that we will review with them. So when you're looking for someone, you're looking for that person you can feel comfortable sharing everything with, honestly.
I agree with both ladies. But one thing I thought about, my sister-in-law the other day mentioned that she has a financial advisor with someone at work. And they're like, you have a financial advisor? Whoa, that's fancy. And so I really like stressing the fact of, hey, you don't have to have $3 million of assets to sit with an advisor. I think that title can be very intimidating to a lot of people, especially women, where they're waiting to have enough to sit with someone where their situation's not embarrassing, or they're waiting to make more to sit with an advisor. That's not the case. There are a lot of advisors who, will take you as a client if it's a right fit. And so I'll just add that on top of what Erin and Mindy shared, because those things are also crucial to check off.
Well, back to your point, Mindy, earlier too about, describe your practice. What does an average client look like? You don't want to be the smallest fish in the pond who isn't respected, and I hate to even say that out loud, but that does exist out there. You also do not want to be the biggest fish in the pond and the advisor doesn't have the same level of education around sophistication of net worth too. And I would also ask technical questions. What is your relationship philosophy and approach to taxes? And they're going to say, well, we don't prepare taxes. I get that, but taxes are a part of everything. You're a financial advisor. You should be able to answer that question. What is your investment philosophy and what types of products do you use? I would ask them, it's an interview and they should be fully prepared and open to answering those questions. And if there's any kind of bristling, just kindly thank them and then run out the door.
I was just going to add, you should also go on the broker dealer website, which is a free website and it's public, and check their disclosures and just make sure there is that you're aware of if there's anything issues going on compliance wise, because those are things that can be hard to find if you don't know there's a public website to go to. I cannot tell you the amount of times that people have come into my office and they'll tell me about some advice they had gotten. And I go, let me just pause. I just want to go on a website really quick. And let me just, it's broker dealer, broker check. And I will pull up the person's name and I just turn the monitor to them. And I go, do we still want to talk about that? I'm happy to, but is that still what you want to talk about? The advice you received from that individual? And they go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was out there. And it tells a lot of details.
It's a fun, nerdy mantra. Clean you for. Okay, 5 minutes. All right, there's one. Oh, go ahead, please. Yeah, please.
Add something quick. Sure, I like lost it just now. I was going to say, I would just say, like, please just work with a professional. Look that person up. Make sure they're licensed with credentials. TikTok is like my headache right now because so many people out there are getting information from social media, and all I can say is, like, please check the source. That's all.
Boy, there's a lot of directions we could go with that comment.
So the question is really around younger women and, well, really all women. How do you sort of balance this? Women want to be happy and have passion with where they're working. And also they need to know, are they earning enough money? Should they earn more? Do they have to just earn the most money? How do you balance that? So in my world, I do think it's critical that women have money. Absolutely. Do you have to have the most money in the room? Probably not. I do think you have to be aware of what you need, right? How do you spend money? What's important to you? You might care that your daughter can have Starbucks. I don't care if my son gets Starbucks, right? But we're not the same. And that's really important. You have to be aware of your type of expenses, what you expect your lifestyle to be in your future, and what will make you happy. Some people love the best, craziest car. Some people don't. It's not wrong or right. You just have to know what you are, right? And what your expenses are and what makes you happy. And then I do believe you have to be aware of what are sort of these like little bombs that could go off around you, from maybe your parents get sick and you have to take off work for a year to take care of them. Could you afford to do that? Are you willing to do that? Right? So you have to really know first yourself, your own expenses, and then we work around that. But I am a big fan of money. I love money, don't get me wrong. But I do think you have to know your point of what's enough.
Well, it touches on risk, right? Like, all these parents, it's so funny to me. You have all these people who have raised children who are now adults in the workforce, and they all got gold stars and they told them they were wonderful. And now all of us who are working with them, including them, are like, oh, these kids, they just don't understand some of these things, right? And well, it's all about risk, right? We've taught a whole generation to pursue their passion. Well, life is not just about passion. It's about meaningful contentment. It's about being able to do things that are aligned with your mission and your vision and your values. You're living alongside your integrity, but it's also about risk. So if I take this job and I'm going to make $40,000 a year and I'm going to be changing the world in whatever fashion that is, that's great. It also comes with a certain level of risk regarding what I cannot do, what my children will not be able to do, right? There's a reality factor that a lot of younger millennials and Gen Z, they're not having kids because kids are too expensive. Like, think about that statement. That's crazy. So I think it's really about risk. And a lot of times when we meet with female investors too, or women identified investors, that they don't understand, like, I want to be in cash. I want to be in bonds. I don't want to be in, and this is not an endorsement of any type of investment, by the way, but there's risk to not growing money. There's risk in perceived safety. It's this little thing that we were reintroduced to in 2022 called inflation. Technically 21, but there's risk has a lot of different hats, and it's how we have that conversation. And one of the questions that Lauren asked us to address is, as PD members, what can we be doing to be better, and how can we move from this meeting to have these kinds of conversations, we need to talk about money. We need to talk about salary. We need to talk about advancement, jobs we want, boards we want to sit on, people we want to get to meet and have coffee with, people who can help us. We have to talk about these things and normalize wealth accumulation. Wealth is not some 1920s term from some mansion owning New Yorker. Money's real, and money can do powerful things. This organization wouldn't exist if we didn't have money. So that's another piece too that I think is really, really important of when you're making these kinds of decisions about, does this job satisfy me to a degree that I can achieve everything else that's important in life as well?
To answer what is better, right? For us to wrap up. Immediately when we are asked that question, for me, it's confidence in female confidence in money. If I can give you confidence in your money, then you will have confidence in every decision that comes from that and flows into what Emily's saying. Then we make each other better, stronger, faster. And the book I'm reading now, Who Not How. It's such a simple one, but it's so impactful. And also, is it Ashley? I can't see your name tag. Yeah, 10 times is simpler than 2 times. That's the other one. So those are my 2 book recommendations. They flow into each other, but that is my better confidence in money.
And just to the confidence term too, right? Like, women are smart. I am so tired of hearing advice that we need more certificates. We need more mentors. We need more sponsors. No, you know what? It's not us who need the mentors and sponsors. We are smart and we are confident, but everything around us is telling us that we don't know these things. We're not being marketed to. We're not being advertised to. We're not being seen as the powerful beings who we are and how we walk this earth. Is when you have confidence in your money, you get to erase the guilt about what you spend. Because you can spend whatever you want when you're automatically saving what you need to Lupita's point, right? And you feel confident and comfortable in what the plan is and what the plan might have to adjust to become because of life's uncertainties too. So you have that inside of you and all the decision-making power. Just tap into it.
I just think it's time to bring women to the table. At the end of the day,
To own the table.
oh, yes, they need to own the table even better. And I think that will solve a lot of issues.
Just very better is access. It's competence, it's confidence, it's access, and it's authority, right? Those are all really important factors.
Shut up, Mindy. So I think we all should do what you're doing, which is creating teams of women, doing this, what we're doing here. Ashley, I think it is crucial to help women make more money, because then the women that are making more money, well, that will trickle down to other women that are coming up. So that's my plug for that.
Follow your dollar. Who does your taxes? Who's your attorney? Who's your financial advisor? Follow your dollar. Anything else, Coach?
I'll say I'm standing over here because I think I was getting echo last time, but I just really appreciate you all and you all for coming out and the folks that tuned in online, because there's so many different conversation. The interest in bringing this conversation, to Emily's point, to professional dimensions, women are confident, are financially secure. That's what do the work that we're called to do in professional dimensions. We can't do that if we're not striving towards that. We didn't even touch the conversation of like philanthropy, which is something that we bring into professional dimensions and actually is a differentiator in professional dimensions, is that we believe in collective philanthropy so that we can build the tables and then let that dollar circulate and invest in the things that we care about. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't plug our Imprint Awards, which are coming on the 18th. That is a chance where we get to practice some philanthropy and continue to build and push in with the self-sufficiency of women. You all know we're partnering with the Sherman Phoenix Foundation for Women in Business network, but all these things are connected. And I just hope that you all see that and feel that and understand the deep, deep intention behind the conversations that we choose, the panelists that we choose, 2 of which are already Professional Dimensions members and 2 of which are hopefully soon to be. because I think that point of following the dollar is so crucial. How do we continue people in our network? A lot of questions and good conversation on the chat. That was awesome. So you all will have to check that out in the recording and in the notes, but everybody was asking about how to be in contact with you. So we'll share your information out as well. But just also thinking about having women like this who are in your corner and able to advise and support you. So thank you all so much to our panelists and beautiful studio audience here at No Studios. Also, thank you, Rob, and thank you, No Studios, for hosting us. Have an awesome day.